bring this person up. So when you come up here, like we've already talked before, we talked on my platform, and we know how it went last time. I'm not gonna go back and forth. I'm just gonna bring up some of the stuff that we talked about last time, and I'm going to let you speak on how you feel about these things. I already know how you feel about them. Marty wasn't there, but I'm going to allow you two to go back and forth. Okay. So that's what we're going to do.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
All right. So
I hope you are too. I originally the background knows what I had originally but I mean I'm always going to talk about like women and value and stuff like that. But yeah, it's up to you. You guide the
yeah,
conversation where
yeah,
you
we're
want it to go.
not going to talk about we're not going to talk about the topic. Like I said, we've already talked about some of the things that I'm going to have you two go back and forth on. I just think this is a good person to for you to go back and forth with and challenge your ideas like myself. So the last time we talked, I had the stream was about amongst other things, but the number one thing was about transgender people disclosing that they're transgender to people, when it comes to dating. So again, like I know where you stand, but just for him, and for the people that weren't there and that don't know where you stand, as a transgender person yourself, can you please say where you stand on transgender people disclosing that to people when it pertaining to dating?
Oh yeah. So I think that it should be when we're talking about transness, I think we have to view transness as we do any other like characteristic about someone when it comes to something that is either a protected characteristic or like your medical history. Like you don't have to reveal medical history to someone unless it's specifically like something that could affect their health, their physical health, specifically. Um, so like yeah, you don't have to. I don't think that trans people have a moral obligation to disclose to someone that they are trans. I think that a lot of times there's a lot of situations where it is the best thing to do. There's also situations where I could see it not being the best thing to do. I look at it the way that I look at abortion. There are instances where a person might not want to have an abortion. There are instances where they should, but that person has to make the choice for themselves what's the best for them in that situation. And what I might choose to do with myself, even like personally, like if I could even have an abortion, I wouldn't have an abortion, but I am very pro-choice and think that other people should have the right to be able to do that. It's the same thing with me when it comes to disclosing someone's trans. I don't date men that don't know that I'm trans because I don't have time for someone who's not able to recognize all the complexity of who I am and appreciate that. Um, so like it's important to me for someone to know like I'm trans and to be able to understand that perspective. But that doesn't mean every other trans person has to share that part of their life because there's trauma sometimes associated with being uh the experiences of trans people. So there's a lot of reasons why a person might not want to disclose that.
One second, Marty. So last time I told you that last time we talked, I told you that I believe that transgender people need to disclose that they are trans. Like again, I said the example that I gave, because I remember it vividly. I said that if two people were to meet at a bar and they were to strike up conversation and be conversing with each other throughout the night, having a good time, and they were to exchange contact information, like I said, I don't think they need to disclose. Like I don't think that a trans woman would need to disclose to that trans man right then and there that they are trans. But I said that if these people were to exchange contact information, I said that when y'all leave, whether it's right away or whether you text that person, I said I think you should text that person or give that person a call that night and just inform them that you are what you are. Because what we were talking about is, I said, you were talking about feeling unsafe, this, that, and the third. I said, well, I can understand if you don't want to do it in front of them, but there's a lot of other ways to communicate with people. So, like I said, whether it's sending him or her a text, sending him or her a phone, giving him or her a phone call, you have so many other ways. And I said that, another thing I said was that, I see, a transgender person sleeping with a heterosexual person, whether it's a heterosexual man or woman, and not disclosing that they're transgender. I see that up there with the highest forms of violation. I see that up there with rape. I see that up there with SA. You need to disclose what you are so that person can know what they're getting themselves into and have an opportunity to make a choice. And I also said the last time we talked, and I still stand on this because in our society right now, when stuff like that happens, it's not like a criminal offense. They can't be like really held accountable for it. So again, I'm gonna say it again. However, the person that was affected wants to go about handling it, I stand with them and I 100% fully support them being able to do that. However, they want to handle it. So Marty, what are your thoughts on her, on what you had heard her have to say
Okay, cool.
about
Yeah.
disclosing?
So, yeah, I think that you definitely should disclose, right? And the reason I think that you should disclose is because there are a lot of men that are not into gay shit at all. And, like there's a lot of dudes that are like that. Like if you play with them that way, even if it's another guy playing with them that way, they ready to knock their block off because it's emasculating, right? It's offensive for a man to be for a lot of men to be treated like you can talk me into giving you some head or talk me into you bending me over or talk me into me wanting to have sex with a man like you're gonna game me like I'm a girl like you can spit game and trick me into doing some gay shit. So a lot of men consider it that way, and so, if for no other reason than protecting yourself as a trans person from having somebody jump on you or unalive you, you should let men know up front, like, hey, I'm a trans girl. So if you're not into that, no problem. Keep it moving, right? Because there are definitely people who are into that, right? And the only reason to not disclose would be to try to maintain some type of connection with a person that you think might not be into it.
Right.
That's the only reason that you would not disclose to somebody, right? Up front, right? Is because you think it might immediately disqualify you.
No,
If
that is not
okay,
the truth.
all right,
There's
so you
reasons to
you're
not
gonna
disclose. Have nothing to do with like trying to maintain a connection with someone.
Okay, all right. So you don't think that a lot of the folks who are trans who don't disclose up front aren't doing so because they don't because they think that the person might not give them a chance if they're trans.
Not necessarily. There's some people who,
Well, talk
uh,
to me about the majority first and then talk to me about some.
I mean,
So
I've
what do
never
you
done
think the
a poll.
majority is?
I've never done a poll on like people
What do
who
you
don't
think? I'm
disclose
just
why
asking
they
what you
don't
think.
disclose for that reason. All I'm saying is that that's not the only reason.
I got it. I know it's not the only reason, but talk to me about what you
You
think
just said
the
it was the only
majority is
reason,
first.
though.
What's the what?
You made
Well,
the
then
statement that
you
the only
said
reason you wouldn't do it was
right.
to maintain a connection with
All right,
somebody.
and you
You have no,
disagree,
like,
and you disagree with that. You
yeah, not
disagree
only
with
is
that.
it not true, there are plenty of people who would seek us out more if they knew we were trans. Like that I've heard that be a reason. I've heard literally people say like
Sure.
I don't want to be schmetishized. So there's at times where they do not tell someone because they don't want to receive that hyper fixation around the fact, oh, you're trans, and like treating that as like a some type of
So
uh
you're saying that a reason to not tell is so that a person doesn't want you more because you are trans,
no, I'm saying
because
that
they're
there
gonna
are
fetishize
people
it.
I'm
No,
saying
Marty.
there are people who there's a lot of men who schmeticize trans women.
That's what
There's
I
a
just
lot of
said.
men who know if they know that they're trans, they're going to hyperfixate on the fact that they're trans to the
Why
point
did
where
you just say no? That's what I just said.
No, Marty. What she's saying and what she told me last time is that she's saying that there's a lot of trans people that if men find out that they are trans, that the hate that they have for trans people, that they're going to get physically violent with them or possibly unalive them. But again, what
Is
I
that
told
what you
you,
were just saying, Jane Doe, or were
No,
you saying that
not
there?
what I was saying to sound. That is also a reason, yes.
No, okay,
What
so
I'm
Noble,
saying,
that is not what she was saying. She was
but that wasn't
saying
what I was saying. That,
she
yeah,
was
that
saying
is
that
also
they
a separate
fetishize
okay,
reason.
it. Yeah,
But
she
there's
was
also
saying that
people,
they.
just
Yeah,
like
you
there's
was
people who hate trans people, there's people who fetishize trans people too,
I heard
and
you. That's what I
the
said.
fact that the person's trans and
Okay,
treat it as like a sexual,
okay.
like they
Did you?
hyperfixate on it, and people don't want to be dehumanized. So there's
All
times
right,
where it's like, yeah, I don't want that happening.
all right. So Jane Doe, did you not hear what I said? Then is that why you said no? That's not correct. When I said to you, hey, so I did a reiteration of what you said. I said, hey, are you saying that a reason not to tell somebody is because they want to be with a trans person and they'll fetishize you? And you said no. Is that not
That
what
wasn't
you? Are we
exactly
not?
how you worded it. I disagree with the way you were originally wording it. But if the core understanding is, yeah, that like sometimes
It's got to
fetishization
be
is
the
also,
understanding, unless you want to have semantical arguments. If you
it
want to,
wasn't.
we got to exchange meaning,
okay,
right?
one second,
Anyway,
one second, Marty, one second. So just two quick things. So two quick things that I want you to touch on, for for you guys to go back and forth on. So the last time we spoke, the woman you're referring to, woman as a cis woman or cisgender woman, and I told you that a lot of the women felt that you were using it to disrespect them, or you were using it in a derogatory way, and you were on your Pikachu account the last time that we talked. So or you on your Kim Possible account. So I told you, I said, when you came up, I said, if I was to say, hey, Kim Possible, and you were to say, Noble, yeah, that's my TikTok name, but I prefer you just call me Kim. But I kept calling you Kim Possible. I said, wouldn't you? I asked you, I was like, wouldn't you find that to be a little insensitive and, disregarding and disrespectful on my part? And you said yes. But then when I said the same thing pertaining to the woman and them wanting you to call them woman instead of like cis woman, you said that it's basically the same thing, and it's by definition it's the same thing, and you were like, well, if they don't want me to call them cis, you said I'm just going to call them non-transgender people. That's what you said, right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
you still stand on that?
Yeah, like that's like again, like I think that if I'm interacting with an individual person and the person says I don't want to be referred to as cis, I will make a point to not refer to them as cis. But if I'm talking about a group of people in general, I'm not going to not use the correct word for the group of people that I'm referring to as like a group. Like you can't tell, like if that's what I'm saying, like it just doesn't make sense to tell me that I can't use the word that is literally the word for, like, it's like saying I can't use the word straight to describe straight people.
Hold on.
Like
So let me no, Jay.
there's
One second, Marty. Hold on, Marty.
Hold on. No, Noble. Let me
Let
please,
me ask you
please,
something. So
Noble.
last time though, again, but if like I gave you the example that I gave you, and I said, but they're telling you what they want you to call them, and you're going out of your way to not do that. So the same way you don't want to be called a boy, you don't want to be called a man because you identify as a woman. In your head you're a woman, even though a lot of people see you as a man because that's what you were, or a male because that's what you were born as. The same way you see that as disrespectful, I don't understand still how you don't see how women telling you that they just want you to refer to them as woman and not as a non-transgender person or not as cis. I don't see how you don't see that as disrespectful. And then I also want you to touch on, and then you and Marty can go back and forth. Last time you told me that cis or trans people are straight people. That's what you told me, right?
some trans people are, yes.
Okay, so I would also like you to touch on how a transgender person can be a straight person. So first thing, touch on the whole referring to women as non-transgender people and cis instead of referring to them how they want you to refer to them. And then I also want you to explain how a transgender person is a straight person. And then
Okay.
Marty, you can respond to her after that.
Okay.
Okay.
So you can't. Woman is a category. There's different types of women. There are fat women, there are skinny women, there are black women, there are white women, there are tall women, there are short women. Within the category of woman, there's lots of different types of women. And using the word woman to describe the one group of women, and like it's like saying it's like if there were a tall woman, if I'm talking about a tall woman, a tall woman's like, stop calling me a tall woman, just call me a woman. But they don't have a problem with me using the word short women to describe short women. I'm like, okay, there's short women. But when I go to say tall women, they're like, oh, stop calling me tall women, only refer to me as a woman. We'd be like, what? That doesn't make sense, because both tall women and short women are women. And so to try to create this delineation and say, oh, woman somehow applies solely to this group and does not need a descriptor is weird. It's the same thing with trans women and cisgender women. Trans women are also women. So if you're referring to women, you're referring to both trans women and cisgender women. There has to be a way of distinguishing the two. Now, if you don't want me to use the word cisgender, then I'm stuck with saying non-trans women, because I still have to refer to the group of out women that are not trans,
Okay, so
because both
can you
trans women
please
and cis women are still women.
okay, and then before Marty, before you speak, also want you to explain how a transgender person is a straight person.
It like not all trans people are. So a trans person is a straight person if they only date people, or if they're only not even date, if they're only attracted to people of the opposite sex or gender. So like I am not straight because I'm bisexual. I am attracted primarily to men, but I'm also attracted to women too. I'm bisexual. But like before I realized I was bisexual, I identified as straight because I was only attracted to men.
So before you transitioned, one more thing, Marty. Before you transitioned, when you were a man, did you see and refer to women as cis woman and trans woman or non-transgender woman, or did you just refer to them as women? Like, just be 100% honest.
I did not have anywhere near the education that I did on gender and the complexities of it before I transitioned. So I would have, um, I don't like, I didn't even really know trans women existed, to be honest. So I wouldn't have really like known to refer to it. I wouldn't have understood nuances because I didn't even know that trans women existed, to be honest.
Okay, go ahead, Marty.
Okay, so here's my thanks for having this conversation and open dialogue with us first off. And I do want to ask you some questions, and a lot of my opinions are very different than yours, but it's
Mhm.
not my goal to try to attack, assault, or diminish you as a person, a human being. And I accept and respect your right to live your life and define yourself the way that you want to define yourself. Okay, and I believe that people who are trans deserve to live a life with dignity and respect. Okay, just like everybody else. So I want to open up by saying that to you, okay? Because we are going to get into some stuff where we're not going to see eye to eye. And I don't want that to be an argument because we're going to investigate a difference in opinion, okay?
I mean, it depends. Like I'm down for having discussions on things, but like
Cool.
everything is not a difference of opinion. So, like for instance, the host said earlier, like that they are okay with that. Like, and they didn't want to say it, but I mean, I'm gonna say it. Like, basically, if someone's violent with somebody because they didn't disclose, like they felt like that's justified. That's not just an opinion. Like that has real world impact. That has real world effect on people. It's not as simple as just having a difference of opinion. Now, I'm respecting the fact the host has the right to that position. I think that's a harmful position, but like there are certain things where it's like it's not just something, oh yeah, we can disagree to disagree on. Like no, this has like real world impact on people's safety. But anyway, yeah, we can go.
Oh,
All
Marty,
right.
Marty, I have to say something because you're gonna have to speak on this as well. So I thank you for bringing that up again because yes, you did tell me that you thought it was wrong, and I like like again I said it last time and I said it today, so I stand on that. But I also I said to you, I said, what about the effects and the implications that a man sleeping with someone that he deemed to be a female, a born female, and learning after the fact that he didn't sleep with a natural born female, that he slept with someone that used to be a man, someone that was born a male. I said, you know, what if I asked you about, what about that making him question his sexuality? And I also talked about what if that made him unalive himself, and because I remember everything. You told me that that would be rooted in his hate for trans people. That's what you told me, right?
Yeah.
So
That's true. Like it would, that doesn't take away from the fact, like again, I said specifically in that instance, I don't want anyone to unalive themselves. Like that would not, I wouldn't be happy about that. I would not be like okay with that happening. I would feel horrible that that person did that, but that would still be rooted in their own biases. My issue with the conversation around that is we are expecting to hold trans people to a standard that we do not hold the rest of the society to. Because if we were having a conversation about how, like, do you feel like it's justifiable for women to kill men who lie to them to get them to sleep with them, we wouldn't be having the same position. A lot of men would not have the position that it's okay to engage in physical violence, despite the fact that, like, if the conversation we were having earlier about women's body counts and their value, if you're saying to me as a woman that my value goes down every time I sexually interact with a man, then by your standard, I would be very justified in unaliving a man who manipulates me into sleeping with him. Because like I've had it happen before where like they're not where I've actually physically slept with them, because I don't sleep with people randomly like that. But like I've had it where men have lied to me and said, "Hey, no, I want to be in a relationship with you. I want to do XYZ with you." And then we manipulated me into a situation where I was more intimate with them when I would have wanted to have been if I had not have been lied to. And then afterward, they didn't follow through on any of the promises. And if we had actually been physically intimate with each other, that's another body on my body count, which y'all say takes away from my value. If that's the case, I should be justified in unaliving them because they've actually made my value as a woman go down. So I don't think these conversations, like this standard of what we are trying to hold trans people to, is not the standard you have for everyone else. That's why I feel like it's kind of
So
bullshit to me.
you used, one second, Marty. So you used that same example last time. So I will use the same example that I used last time. So I said the same way. So you said that, a man unaliving himself because a trans woman didn't disclose to him that person was a trans woman before engaging in sex with him, and you said that him unaliving himself would just be rooted in his transphobia. That's what you said. It would be rooted in his transphobia. So,
Yeah.
and another example I said was, I said, so if someone has an STD or an STI, if someone has HIV or they have AIDS, I said, I think it would be appropriate that before engaging in sex with someone, that they inform that person that they have HIV or AIDS. And you told me that, that example and trying to compare that to trans people is just like basically BS, and there's no correlation between the two. So I don't see how you can say that I'm wrong for feeling that that man that was, didn't have the opportunity to make a decision because he wasn't informed. And I said that if he wants to unalive that person, that I support it. But when I say, what about that man unaliving himself, you tell me that that's rooted in his transphobia.
Yeah,
So
that's again, yeah, you having a an emotional reaction to something because of your prejudices about a certain person is not the same thing as a communicable disease that can kill you. Like a disease that can kill you and destroy your immune system and is like a verifiable thing that exists outside of that is not the same thing as a very um because this is the thing. Let's say, okay, if you have man A believes that trans women are women, sees them as valid women, and is in no way has a problem dating a trans woman. And then you have man B, who does not think trans women are women. They think that they're men that are just playing dress up, da 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 da. Trans woman sleeps with man A and sleeps with man B. Both of them don't know that she's trans at the time, and they find out later on. Man A is not going to have that reaction of, "Oh my God, am I gay? What about my sexual?" Because he doesn't feel that way. He's like, "Oh yeah, I just slept with a woman who has a different history, whatever," and he's not going to care. Man B is having that reaction because of the way he views trans women.
All right. Is it
Go ahead,
possible that
Marty.
he's
Yeah,
having
Marty,
that?
go ahead. Have at it. Go ahead.
All right. Is it possible he's having that reaction because he was tricked into doing a sex act with a gay person, or a gay sex act, something that he evaluates as a gay sex act?
What?
How about that?
But it's what I'm
Is
saying.
there
Yeah,
any
that's
chance?
his prejudice.
Is there
That
any chance that
that is his
because he
prejudice.
doesn't hold on 1 second. Is there any chance that because he doesn't want to have gay sex, and to him a woman, a trans person who transitions to be a woman is not a woman?
That's
So,
literally his prejudice. That's exact.
okay,
That's
so
yeah,
check this
I
out.
agree with you. That's
So
exactly what I'm
what is
saying.
hold on, what does prejudice mean?
You're prejudging something.
Okay, so that's not prejudging something. Okay, if these are two different belief systems. This is one thing I want us to be clear on. Okay, there are
I
two
guess you could
different
say it's a
belief.
bigoted thing
No,
more than
hold on one
bigoted.
second.
I guess would be the better word for it.
All right,
I don't.
hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. There's two different belief systems in this country right now. Okay, one side believes that if you identify as a woman, then that makes you a woman. Okay, just identifying on the inside as a woman makes you a woman. And if you don't identify as whatever sex you are born, then you can change your gender to meet the needs of the difference between what sex you are born and who you actually want to be. Okay. That is the side of the fence that I see you to be on. Do you disagree with that?
I would say my position is more complex than that. I don't think it's just as
Sure,
simple.
sure, sure. I know there's a ton more complexities to it, but I'm just saying, are those things generally true?
Okay, yeah, let's just go with that.
Okay. All right. And then there's another side who says, okay, look, there are people who want to live their lives as a different sex than they were born. And so they do surgeries and wear the clothes of the other sex so that they can live their lives that way. But to us, you were born a man and you're a man, or you were born a woman and you're a woman. So that's not transphobia.
It
That's
is
a belief system.
that's definitionally what transphobia is.
No,
Like
no,
if
no, no,
you
no.
believe
So
if you
transphobia.
believe,
So transphobia. So let me get this straight. So anybody who does not accept that a person becomes a woman by feeling that they are inside is transphobic. Is that the definition of transphobia?
I would if you do not believe in trans identities on any level, like if you do not believe, like I would not say that uh because I think that the concept of gender is very like complex. So I could see someone saying, I don't think that identifying alone is what makes you a woman or something like that. Like I can understand like how they might need more understanding of the philosophical arguments around gender. But if they feel like trans identities are still valid on some level, I would be like, okay, well, yeah, that's like a little
But
transphobia
the
there, but like we can work with that. But if you don't believe
but
trans
the
people are valid like at all, and you see all trans women as being men, that is transphobia. Yeah,
Okay, so you're basically, if you don't accept that a man can become a woman by wanting to be a woman, then you are transphobic, correct?
I feel like that's a gross oversimplification of the argument, but okay.
Is it a wrong simplification? Is it
I feel
wrong?
like I feel like
Even though it's missing all the
you're
nuance?
oversimplifying what I'm
It
saying. I'm
doesn't have
saying
it,
you do not believe that any trans women are women and that all trans women are men. That is transphobia. If you believe that
okay.
all
All
trans
right,
men are
well then
women,
okay,
you
well
think,
then all
yeah,
right,
that's
so then
transphobia.
you all right, that's fine then. I accept that that is the definition that you're describing to me, a transphobia. I haven't looked up the definition, so I can't contest that. I'll accept that that is the case. However, I am just going to tell you that you, as you said, the philosophy of gender. Philosophy is a study of knowledge. It's a questioning and a conversation about knowledge. That's what philosophy is. Okay. So that means that a lot of it is not empirical, right? It is subjective. It's not empirical. So what that means is that right now the dominant perspective in this country is, if you want to know, the dominant perspective of the people is very different from the dominant perspective being cast to the people by the media and the institutions that are in the country. The media and the institutions are saying that if you want to be a woman on the inside, then that makes you a woman. If that is your new gender and you are a woman, you are a trans woman. If that's what you say you are, that's all it takes. Okay, that's what the media is telling everybody. That is what the institutions that make up our governmental bodies is telling everybody. Okay. But the people in this country, the vast majority of the people, they do not accept that. They don't delineate gender and sex. They don't, right? They think that if you were born a man, that you're a man. Now, I'm somebody where I believe you have the right to live your life however you want. God didn't put me here to judge you in that manner. Okay. God put me here to respect you and to love you. That's why God put me on this planet. Not to try to tear you down or get you to hate yourself or anything like that. But I'm not going to bend what I know to be true. And I've taken a look at, how gender and sex got delineated over the last like 20 years. And really, it was started about 40 years ago. And that the person that really started the conversation around trans identities and stuff like that in this country, in terms of the psychological, the psychological and academic story of that, started with a man who took two twins and turned one into a girl, and this had terrible effects on them because it didn't work. The experiment didn't work, and
Yep.
that's fine. I know that there are lots of folks who are trans who transition and they're happy, but I also know that the unalive rates of trans people do not change whether or not they transition.
That's
So
factually
if
untrue. That is factually untrue. But you do
okay,
realize
well,
that what you just referenced with John Money is literally what made us discover gender identity was a thing. Like before then, the thought was that like you could tell someone, "Oh, you're a boy" or "You're a girl," and as long as you convinced them of that, they would just take on that identity, and that there was no internal sense of what your identity was. The John Money experiment, which although it was a horrible experiment, is a horrible person, literally proved that no, we do have an internal sense of our gender. That despite any external like input, we can maintain a gender identity that is internal, even when all external things are telling us opposite. Like that's literally what that study found out because they raised him as a girl. He did not know that he had been born a boy. And even physically, they had him like made to look like a girl physically to the point where but he always maintained a male identity despite having been told he was a girl his entire life and despite having a physical body part that looked female. That was literally the what they discovered from that experiment.
okay,
But he
so
was
yeah,
not the
I
person
think
who
it.
advanced
I
trans.
understand. I understand what you're saying. I think it proves the opposite. That of the way that you're using it is very different than the way that I use it. Right? To me, I do know that there are men who are born who are effeminate. And I do know that there are women who are born who are masculine. When we were kids, the girls were tomboys. And what they find is that if there is no push to be a transgender person, most people, like 80% of people, outgrow this desire to change their gender.
That's also not
So
true.
yeah, well,
That you're
I've got
referencing a
different.
study where like this I know what study you're referring to. You're referencing a study where basically they asked like children in general. They didn't ask them if they were experiencing gender dysphoria. They asked if they were showing any signs of gender divergent behavior, which could be anything from a boy playing with dolls to a boy being slightly more feminine to any of that. And it was such a wide spectrum of anything they were considering gender divergent behavior that yeah, that's not going to be a conclusive study. That's not the same thing as specifically people saying, hey, I don't feel comfortable in my body, or hey, no, I'm a little girl, or hey, no, I'm a little boy. That like the study was very, very broad. I know which study you're referring to,
Yeah,
but they
I think
also
that
published studies where like trans kids who transition maintain their
okay.
identities 5 years later and like they are growing into like their late teens and stuff like that and they're following like case studies of kids and finding that they've maintained their identity throughout such.
Right. So yeah, that I think that's because they're being indoctrinated to think this based off of the way our educational system works and the way that the media now is in complete lockstep with this. Like I've like everything I see on. Well, hold on. Let me. I know you're not going to agree with my points, but just allow me to finish them. Right. So to me, I look at the fact that there's 108 different gender pronouns now in the state of New York. And then when you talk about the study not being specific enough, I wonder how it could be when the whole entire concept of gender now is amorphous, it is nebulous and vaporous to the extent that there's a person in my son's school who identifies as an Elkin, which is an alien race. And so this concept that how you feel inside, there are people who identify as lupins, which are wolf people, right? So I understand what it is that you're saying, but I think it's difficult to tie this stuff down because the nature of the conversation itself just ignores the basic biology of a human being. Now, I definitely think there are men who are born who want to have sex with men. And I definitely think there are men who are born who may want to live their lives as women. I believe that there are women who are born who want to have sex with women. And I believe there are women who are born who want to live their lives as men. Whether or not that makes them a man or makes them a woman is, I guess, what would make me transphobic in your eyes, because I don't think that the desire to be something and then to have surgeries to do it or to wear the clothing or the outfit or the costume of that makes you that thing. And the vast majority of people in this country and around the world, most of them don't think that way. But there's this tremendous push from academia and from the government and from the media to convince people otherwise. And they're trying to start with the children. They want to talk to your kids about it.
This is
They want
also
to tell you
like the
they want
the thing
they
about
want
it
to
is
tell you they
it's
want to tell
really
your kids
irritating
about
to
it.
me that you're
One,
I know.
one second,
Wait,
Pikachu. One
hold on. They
second.
want to tell you they want to tell your kids about it. And my personal belief is that the reason they want to tell your children about it is because a lot of them aren't going to naturally reproduce children of their own. So the only way to propagate the idea
this
is
disingenuous
to
fucking
indoctrinate
conversation.
your children with the ideas, because they're not going to have kids of their own to do it to, so they have to do it to your kids. So they're going to tell your kids, you're not really a boy, you're not really a girl, you're anything you decide to be. And we can all just live in this land where we're the only species of animal on the planet where there's not boys and girls except for fucking hyenas and a couple of single cell organisms and shit at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is actually just like harmful. Like like I was
Pikachu.
even
I'm sorry,
starting to
Pikachu. I'm sorry.
feel
One,
like
one second. One second. One second. I'm turning the comments off till we get to 75K likes. It's free to tap the screen. It's 5:06 a.m. Y'all are getting some great content right now for on the greatest platform on here by the greatest host. So until y'all get the likes up to 75K, I'm turning the comments off. Go ahead, Pikachu.
yeah, I was gonna say like I feel like I came into this conversation like trying to be like charitable, but I feel like that the turn that just had makes me feel like this isn't even like a conversation. It's actually coming from a place of genuinely wanting to learn. It's more about wanting to push a narrative, because the idea that trans people are trying to trans people's kids because they can't have kids of their own is so wild, because you do understand trans people can reproduce. You do understand, like, if I had went through the steps to be able to do it, which I just personally didn't want to, I could very well have reproduced with someone before I transitioned, or even after I transitioned, could be able to reproduce with someone. So what that idea is wild to me. There's literally trans people who reproduce after they've transitioned, because trans men can get pregnant even after they transition, unless they've had like a hysterectomy.
Yeah, I understand that. I know that, but I'm just saying that the lifestyle of being in the LGBTQ spectrum doesn't typically naturally produce children, because those folks don't want to deal with the sex partners that they would need to create the biological effect of pregnancy.
You
So because of that, yeah, sure. I mean,
there's
like a woman can go and have sex with whoever she wants. A man can go and have sex with whoever they want. They can get married. They can live their lives. And I support that you want to live your life. If you want to get married, I hope that you get married. If you want to live your life, I hope that you are able to do all of those things. but I'm just speaking to you directly about what the experience is of the vast majority of people who are heterosexual. The heterosexual folks in this country are being bombarded nonstop, and their children are being bombarded nonstop. And the gay population of the country is about 4.6%. The LGBTQIA, all of them, 4.6%. And so trans are a subsect of the LGBTQIA spectrum of folks. So you're talking about an incredibly small percentage of the country where everybody needs to change the way they talk. Everybody needs to understand gender differently to try to accommodate them. And one of the concepts that's used to push this is intersex people, which represent like 1.7 out of 10,000 people. So, and it's not somebody who's actually born with, but it's a deformity. It's not a separate gender.
It's not a conformity first off.
It,
No,
it, it is, if you're
we're
born
not
with
going to
both
use an
genders,
example
then it's
because
100%
they're actually
deformity.
using language that is harmful and has led to the dehumanization of intersex people. I have
No, it
multiple
does. It's
people who
it's not
I'm
dehumanizing
close
somebody to
with
say
who
that
are
they're.
intersex. Don't refer to them as being a deformity because that's not the
It
case.
is though. If you were born
It is
with one
not the
foot, then
case.
that's a
It is
deformity.
not the case and is not
If you were born
recognized
with
by
six fingers, it's a deformity.
society. It is
Hold on. If
considered
you
a
hold on,
variation
it's not a
within the
variation.
spectrum. It is not
Okay, so
considered
let me. All
deformity.
right. So
We
you and
should
I
be
disagree
referring to
on that.
people
Let
as
me.
deformities. That's
All right.
wild. It's
All
incredibly
right. So
dehumanizing. It's not appropriate.
okay, hold on one second. Hold on one second. I don't. So let me ask you a question. If somebody is born with six fingers, am I dehumanizing them if I'm saying that their hand was born deformed?
Yes, that is exactly what. Right now, the
Okay.
scientific community, because of the things we understand and the understandings we've come to understand about like biology and evolution, it is a variation. It is
It's a variation.
yes, a variation means that
So
human
what is
like
a deformity? Then define what a deformity is to me.
I mean, they're moving away from using that word when it's in reference to people, humans to begin with,
All right,
especially the
so
medical
they haven't
community.
yet. So what is a
It's like
deformity since we haven't gotten rid of it yet?
I think deformity would only refer to something. So, for instance, if it's not able to perform like a function, so like if it's like if your heart is formed, like half of the heart is formed, they may say like it's a deformed heart because it's not like able to like function like at all.
Okay. So when people are born intersex, are you saying that most of the time they have full usage of both sets of genitals?
Intersex people don't tend to be born with both types of genitals. That's like I don't think that that's happened. Like the majority of the like that's a if that they have not observed a person who is born with like both sets of genitals.
There's people who are born with the
They're both
manifestation.
ambiguous genitalia sometimes, but not both sets of genitals, quote unquote.
All
That's
right.
not a
All right. And so are you saying that their ambiguous genitalia is typically functioning and that's why it's not considered a deformity?
it depends on the kind of intersex person that they are. There's definitely intersex people who are capable of reproducing. There's some intersex people who are not capable of reproducing. But
Okay.
either
All right.
way,
So
they would
all
not
right.
be
Well,
referred to as a deformity.
all right. Well, I mean, so to me, I think, this kind of takes us back to another point. I think it's crazy that when I use a term like deform to describe something that is not the normal form that 99.999 93% of people are born with, is that is something I cannot do. But if the an entire group of people, the vast majority of people don't want to be referred to as cis, then that's a scientific term we don't need to let go of. It seems like oftentimes it's a one-way street when you're dealing with folks who are on the left. They get to decide what is offensive. And if you are offended by something, it is because you are a transphobe or you're against them, but they get to decide whatever it is that's offensive to them. If they don't want to be called trans anymore, then trans people will be able to change that name. And if you didn't want to use it, it's because you're a transphobe or you're short-sighted or you're ignorant. But if you're a person who was naturally born a man or a woman and you don't want to be referred to as cis, now we have to listen to umbrella terms and bullshit that we don't agree to, that nobody else except for folks on your side of the aisle are agreeing to. which is an incredibly small group of people who somehow is empowered to make decisions about what is appropriate for
It's
everybody else.
so it's not about being empowered. So I'm going to read the dictionary definition of deformed because I'm going to give exactly why it's not the same thing as what you're saying. Hold
Okay,
on. Let me bring
one second, Pikachu, before you read it. Um, get the likes up to 90K, y'all. Get the likes up to 90K. Don't play with me. Y'all either gonna pay or you gonna tap. So go ahead, Pikachu.
so hold on, let me see.
And then when we get off of this, I do want us to get back to the topic of disclosing, because Pikachu, I would like for you to speak on, you know, if and when you do think it would be appropriate for a trans person to disclose that they're trans to someone, but after this.
Yo, based off of what I heard from Pikachu, she said that she would disclose. Like she would disclose. Like she thinks that she should personally disclose. But she makes
It's
room
not
for the
about
fact.
should. It's not about should. I don't my time is valuable. I'm only going to invest my time into people who hold I'm not going to invest my time on people who I'm trying to think of how to explain this in the
So Pikachu, why you're thinking about that? Like again, um, I know, and you said this last time. I know you said that you're bisexual, and that's all good and dandy. But like I said last time, I think, thank you for the roses, Audacious. I think that a heterosexual man or woman should be informed, because if that is something that they are not into, they should be informed, and they should be informed that that's what they're getting themselves into, so they can say yes or no. So just to like not tell them at all, and then say that if they unalive themselves, or if they want to go do some bad things to that person after, that is rooted in transphobia, and then also try to make it seem like that's part of the hate that like people have for your people. You can't play a trick on somebody like that, and then when they do something about it, you say that it's because they have hate in their heart for a certain group of people. I don't agree to that.
that's the thing. It's not playing a trick on them. That's the problem. That is literally, and it's so many layers deep because it goes back to misogyny first and foremost. It's rooted in misogyny because men
Hatred of
feel
women.
yes because
Okay.
it's not misogyny is not just the hatred of women. It's prejudice towards it's bias toward like against. There's so many layers to misogyny that it can't just be wrapped up in oh you just hate women. That's not what misogyny is. Part of what it is that men feel entitlement to women's bodies. Men view women's femininity as a allure to them, something that belongs to them. So much so that when we're talking about women and femininity and all of those things, when we like, so for instance, like if a woman's wearing makeup, men assume that is done to attract a woman. There's plenty of women who get out there and put a full face of makeup on and dress provocatively as possible and all that stuff. And they're not doing it to attract men, but men assume, no, they're doing this to attract me, to attract men. It's this
Mhm.
concept that women's femininity exists for the consumption of men. And
Okay.
so,
And
because
so
that is
there's
the way men think about femininity and women and womanhood, they assume anyone who takes on the aesthetic or the role of womanhood is doing that to get them. Y'all don't understand. There's lots of
right,
lesbian
but if
trans.
you guys are,
There's
if
lots of trans.
hold on, but if you're, hold on one second, Jane, but if you're engaging in a sex act with this person, then whether you dressed up like whether you dress the way that you dress to try to get them or not, that's irrelevant. The point is that if
It
you
is.
want to have it's like
It is
let me ask
relevant
you a question.
because
Let
Noble
me ask you a
said you
question.
trick them. Tricking someone involves that you're actively doing something to cause a certain outcome. But if I at no point ever am trying to trick you, then that can't be
All right,
brought
Hold on,
into the
so
Marty. Hold on, Marty. Let me.
so
Hold on,
I
Marty.
get what you're I get well
Hold on,
hold on
Marty.
no noble
Pikachu,
noble you
Pikachu. You can say that that's not tricking, but like you should if you know that this person is a heterosexual man and you know that this person is interested in women, natural born females, and you are not a
Okay.
natural natural born female, you need to disclose that to that person and give
How
them
would
the
I know that?
give them
okay, so hold on.
How do I
give
know that they don't date? They don't
okay,
date
that's
trans
why
women?
that's why it is it okay, like Marty said, y'all make up 4.2, 4.6, whatever of the population he said. If you so and you know that most men are heterosexual men, you should not assume that a natural born male wants to deal with a heterosexual woman. So it is on you to inform that person that, just so you know, this is what I am, and give them the opportunity to decide, because if you tell them, some people are going to be down with it, but just let him know.
There are more heterosexual men that want to sleep with trans women than there are trans women. And that is backed up by just the adult entertainment
That's got
industry.
nothing to do with what we're talking about.
No, it does have everything to do with what you're talking about, because again, you are coming from the position where you expect trans people to assume that cis people or non-trans people, whatever term you want to use, don't want to sexually interact with us. When, as I'm saying, there's a lot of men out there
Okay, so
who want to
I
sleep
get
with
that.
trans women, or either want to sleep with trans women or would not have a problem with sleeping with trans women.
All right,
And
then
you're
if that were
expecting
if
a trans person to
hold
assume
on,
that
Jane,
everyone out there doesn't want to, and so that we have to warn them before we're interacting with them.
you don't have to
It's
you don't have to
it's
warn
not
them, but if
everybody's
That's
date.
no, hold
exactly what
on,
it is.
But Pikachu,
hold on.
if you're saying that there's all these men that want to sleep with all these trans people, why wouldn't you just, well, what's the harm in letting him know then? What's the harm in letting him
Again, there's
know?
there's layers to it. The person might not even want to be in a relationship with you. Like a lot of people hook up, like okay,
They don't want
I'm
to
not
hook up
that
with a
person
trans
because
person.
I'm not. I don't get sexually attracted to someone like, or like want. I can be sexually attracted. I don't want to be intimate with someone unless I have an emotional connection with you. I can't do like casual hookups. This is not how I function. But if I was, there could be times where I want to hook up with a dude and just get off, but I have absolutely no interest in dating him. Why should he know about intimate parts of my life that he could use to try to weaponize to either blackmail me or get me hurt
All right,
or
let
any
me
of that?
answer that.
I hook
Let
up
me
with somebody. Like
okay,
that's
that's a good
I don't
question.
think you have to play
Let
that
me
level
tell
of
you something.
transparency with someone you're hooking
Okay,
up with.
let me answer, Jane, because sex is an act between two people and it's not just about your feelings. The other person matters too. So because the other person matters too, your different feelings and your different layers and all the stuff that you think is so important, that will guide you to either say, let me finish, that will guide you to either disclose or not disclose, all those different layers and things that are so important to you, right? They've got things that are important to them as well. But oftentimes, when we talk to people who are on your side of the fence, you really couldn't care less about the other person. You don't care about their desires, their wants, how they feel, what they want. It's about what you want and how you feel. And hey, I just wanted a hookup, so I don't have to disclose this and I don't have to say that, because that's what's important to you inside your head. But your thinking about the sex act stops there. And that's the part. Hold on one second. That's the part that's disingenuous, because you want empathy, but you come from a position of zero empathy. That's how it's being perceived. Do you hold on one second. Hold on before you respond. Can you understand, even though you don't agree, can you understand why somebody would feel like that's a zero empathy position? Can you even understand it, even though you don't agree?
I don't believe I don't think so, because I'm not saying I don't have zero empathy. I understand your position. I understand how we got to the position. I even said earlier when we were talking about the suicide thing, I understand that happening. That would be a horrible thing. I would have empathy for that person, and that would not be okay. But to act like just because I empathize with you does not mean that I am going to say you are right in every situation. There's lots of situations where I can empathize with the person, how they got in that position, but because you're either causing harm to someone or you have more power within the interaction, I'm going to default to the person who has less power within the interaction.
Well, I don't.
So
I think that as two people, they both have a equal responsibility to try to respect one another. I think men, I had a buddy of mine I was talking to a couple of days ago, and he said that he was talking to this girl and was going to have sex with her. And I asked him, I said, hey, what does this woman want from you? Does she want marriage and relationship, or does she just want to date you and have fun? He said she wants a relationship. I said, man, you can't have sex with this girl then. You can't have sex with this person when they want a relationship and they want marriage and you just want to get off. That's unfair. That's somebody's wife. If she doesn't want to have sex with anybody or it's not going to result in a marriage, then you can't just take it. Now that's because even though he's bigger and stronger and this, that, and the other, he still has a responsibility to the person that he's having sex with. And my point to you is what people outside of your community experience people inside your community as is that your feelings, your experience, your perception, all of that is important. And what other people feel and think is misogyny, toxic masculinity, and transphobia. So you don't give a shit about it. You don't care how other people think or feel. You don't really care how any of this stuff makes them feel. Hold on one second. You don't care. It stops and starts with you. And if somebody doesn't agree with you, then they're a transphobe. So they deserve whatever it is that they get.
that's always been the case, though. With every liberation movement that's ever happened, that's literally always been the case. There's
All
not
right.
one liberation movement that's happened.
The problem
Okay,
you got is
no, no, I
the
let you
problem
finish.
you got.
No, no, I let you
Okay,
finish.
sorry.
Every
I'll
liberation
mute.
movement, from women's rights and feminism to the civil rights movement to like literally every liberation movement that's ever existed has always had the majority telling the minority, y'all are asking for too much. You're not thinking about our feelings. Why is it just about you? Why do we have to change the way we're doing things? You're just the minority here. Literally every group of people has had the same rhetoric pushed on them saying, oh yeah, y'all are just trying to make society conform to things. You don't think that white people were extremely uncomfortable and like that they didn't like having black people in their spaces? We made them feel uncomfortable. They didn't like having us around them. They were scared of us. You don't think that like they were being like, oh my god, you're not being empathetic. Like, yeah, we're afraid to have you in our spaces, and we're like, okay, and we don't give a fuck. We have a right to be able to be in these spaces and in these public places. So yes, I could 1000% empathize with
We're
this.
talking about sex
Like,
acts.
I understand why cisgender people are afraid of trans people. They're disgusted by trans people. Why they
Nobody's saying that. They just don't
I
want to have sex with
understand
them
all
without
of that.
knowing it.
But at the same time, I still y'all like there's still that you have more power in the interaction. So I'm going to default to
So,
the people who have less power in the interaction.
all right. So guess what? So check this out. So here's what you've got. Here's what you're essentially saying. We represent an incredibly small portion of the population. We don't have any power. The only power we have is to reason with you, is tolerance, but we have no real power against any of this. And we don't care how you feel either, right? We don't care if because we aren't talking about whether or not you deserve dignity, respect, a right to a beautiful, long
Yes, you are.
life
You're most
with
definitely doing that.
hold on.
Yes,
You
you
know
are.
what? I know I get that you feel that way because I don't accept that a person who dresses up as the opposite sex becomes the opposite sex. I don't feel that way, but I don't want to diminish their ability to do that. They have the right to do that, but that doesn't mean that you have rights to the dominion inside my heart and what I think and how my mind works and all of that. You don't get that. Now I can
I didn't say
respect
that.
you.
I
Well,
have a
hold
right.
on. No, hold on. I can respect you as a human being. I can respect you and love you as one of God's creations. I can do all of that. But I don't have to take on your belief system to validate you. I don't, and most people are not, and they won't. And but I believe that we still have to
Most people
teach
are bigoted.
people. Hold on. I get what you're saying, but the reason you feel this way is because the government right now was agreeing with your dominant narrative. If the government wasn't agreeing with your dominant narrative right now, you would be shouting out about all of that. So my point to you is simply this. You can't go to the people that you're expecting tolerance from and say, we don't give a shit how you feel. It's counterintuitive. I'm going to default to the people who are the lesser of the group. So I don't have to care about how everybody else feels. But at the same time, I need all of you to change how you think, how you see things for me. And
I
that's
never
why
said
you
like
guys,
I
hold
don't
on.
give a shit
That's
about
why,
how some
that's,
people
hold on.
feel.
That's
I
why,
never
that's
said
why
that.
I get it. I get it. That's not what you said exactly, but the
I've
effect of
never
what.
implied that.
Okay, well,
That is
hold on,
literally
check
just
this out.
twisting what I said. I've never
No,
once implied or said that.
hold on, check this out. The vast majority of people don't believe dressing like the opposite sex or living as the opposite sex makes you the opposite sex. And I said that if somebody doesn't accept that, that makes them a transphobe. So you are asking for people to believe what you believe. So you can't say that. You're just being argumentative because you did 100% say that. I made sure
They're
that I
not the same
clarified that
thing.
point.
That's not the same thing. That's like
All right.
saying
Well,
that
it's no different to
no,
us.
no. That's like somebody saying, hey, like I'm a disabled person. And someone's like, oh yeah, I think disabled people are less human than like able-bodied people. And
Nobody
someone's
said
like, no,
you're less
that's
human.
actually hold on, let me finish what I'm saying. That's actually bigoted. Like that's actually ableist. That is wrong. And you're saying,
Mhm.
oh, well, if you're telling me that that is wrong, that means that you don't care about my opinion as an able-bodied person. Like, no, that's
No.
not the same thing. I'm saying
Okay.
your viewpoint on this is rooted in
Mhm.
bigotry. That
All
does
right. So
not mean I don't care about
I have
your
a question
perspective.
for you. I have a question for you. I have a question for you. Can I not believe that a person putting on a dress makes them a woman and still value them as a human being?
That isn't what we're talking. That's not what we're asking for, though.
Well, the
That's the
analogy,
thing. Is
hold
like
on,
it.
I get that, but the analogy you just gave was I see you as less than a person, as less than a human being because they're disabled. And the
I was using that
problem,
as an example because
hold on.
whenever I use race, people
Well,
get mad.
it's not a good example because nobody's arguing that you're less than a human being. Nobody is making that
Okay.
argument.
Well, I will give you another example. People are going to get mad because they always get mad when I do this.
No,
It's
I
like
won't get
if
mad
a
at you
white
no matter
person
what you say.
says,
Go
"Oh,
ahead.
I think black people are more violent." Like I like like I don't have a problem with black people. I don't view people black people as less human, but I do think that black people are just more violent. That would be
Okay.
racist. They can have a racist belief and still think that black people are human. So because that like
Mhm.
racist does not equal that you don't view black people as human. So yes, you can have a bigoted belief about trans people and still respect and love them as one of your brothers in Christ or whatever you want to refer to it.
All right, so hold on. So I want to understand your analogy. You said, okay, so if I believe that black people, if somebody believed that black people are more violent, they can still believe that they're human, but they just think that they're more violent. All right, so I understand the analogy that you're saying, but I don't think it's a good analogy at all. And the reason I don't think it's a good analogy at all is because by you wanting to dress up, or not you wanting to dress up, by a person who wants to live their life as a different gender, right? Wanting to do that, I don't think makes them a bad person. Now, the social impact of the movement is very different than the individual person. You as an individual human being, I'm going to judge you based off of what type of person you are. My experience of you so far is that we're having a discourse where you haven't lost your temper and we've been able to go back and forth. I see you as an intelligent thinking being, right? I don't think you yourself are trying to teach my kids in the school that their gender is this malleable, amorphous thing. But I do know that you identify as a person who is inside of a movement that you are not exactly responsible for, right? And that movement has its own agenda independent of what you may want as a person. Because I've talked to transgender people who don't think they should be teaching gender to kindergartners and second and third and fourth and fifth graders, right? I've talked to transgender people who believe that they're still part of they're under the transgender flag, but they don't believe that that should be taught to kids. They don't believe kids should be able to transition young. They've got opinions that line up with mine, even though they're transgender. So to me, I'm not diminishing you as a person based off of you being transgender. I disagree with your ideas, and a lot of your ideas come from your transgenderism. There's
Yeah,
a
you are
big difference
disagreeing with
there.
my core identity. So yes, that is like
No, I
a
don't disagree.
fundamental
Hold on,
aspect
hold on.
of what
I don't
like
I
what
don't
makes
hold
transphobia.
on. I don't hold on. I don't disagree with your identity.
You do.
I don't
You don't
accept. No,
believe
no,
that
no, 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 no. Hold on. This is an important distinction. This is a very important distinction. I support your right to live your life however you want to. Okay.
that
It
is
is just not my,
what I'm saying.
it is just not my belief. I just don't believe that having surgery and putting on the outfit of a different gender changes your gender. Right.
I
But
don't
that
believe
doesn't
that either.
mean what you said.
Like that's not those things are not what makes your gender your gender. I agree with
That's fine. Right. Okay. So I don't think that believing you're a woman inside makes or a man inside, because I'm not talking about you specifically, right? I don't think that makes you a man or a woman, right?
you. Do you
So
believe
for
I'm a
me, what you say?
do you believe that I am a woman?
No, no, but I'm willing to call you she
Then yeah, then
and treat you.
that's transphobic. Like that's
Okay, well
I don't like all the like flowery language and trying to speak around. You don't believe that I'm a
no,
woman.
I didn't speak
That
around
belief
anything. You asked
is
me a direct
literally
question and I gave you a
textbook
direct answer.
definition example
Hold on,
of
hold on.
of
I didn't,
transphobic.
ma'am, I didn't speak around anything. You asked me a direct
You
question and
are.
without hesitation,
You
I gave
are.
you a direct answer.
No,
So I
I'm
didn't
talking
speak
about
around
before.
anything.
You kept saying like, oh yeah, like I think I believe you have a right to do this.
I
Like yeah,
do.
just say what you say it with your chest. You don't think that
I
I'm a
do.
woman. That
Correct.
belief is transphobia. Cool.
That's
Like
fine. That's fine. I accept that. If that's what they've made transgender mean, or
that's not
transphobia
what
mean,
anyone made it to be. That's always what it's been.
okay. Well, listen. If that's the definition of the word, then I fault. Then me and the vast majority of the world and the vast majority of Americans fall into that bucket, because
Yep.
most of us don't believe that wanting to be a woman, the sheer desire to be a woman makes you a woman. But I support your right to live your life however it is you want. And if that's not good enough for you, then you can't dip into my heart and mind and change the way that I see people.
Yeah, no, it's that's not
Okay.
good enough. That isn't good enough, but I'm also not going to try to do that because that's not
Right.
I don't at the end of the day, like again, it's not it's not worth my energy to try to do that. I don't
Right. I don't think it
like
is
I'm
either.
going to focus on trying to educate people who actually like want to understand things and want to learn and want to understand the world as it functions. And so for people who are determined to not function in that sphere of reality to me, that's not why do I waste my time on that?
I don't think you should. I don't think you should. I think that trans people that think like this and folks who agree with this are free to sit up and talk about it and talk to each other about it and all of that stuff. And people who are curious about it are free to learn about it and all of that type of stuff. However, the where people run into different lines is where they say, okay, well, you don't believe in this, Mr. Thompson. Okay. But your kids go to this school and we're going to teach them to think like this. We're going to tell them that this is how things work, even though you don't agree with it and it's not how you think things work. And that's where I think a lot of the debate is happening, because folks have their own ideologies, right? Their own religious backgrounds, their own philosophies, personal philosophies about how they think the world works. And right now, a lot of people are in a battle with the state about them teaching their children philosophies about how the world works that are not in line with their families and their personal philosophies. They don't believe that you have
I
that, not you,
I
but
don't
that the
believe that
apparatus has the right to teach them that,
I
right?
don't believe that parents or any citizen has a right to uh I don't believe parents or any citizen has the right
Mhm.
to misinform our next generation of citizens. And I think
All right,
the
so
government of all entities has a vested interest in making sure that its citizens are not only educated on how the world actually works, but that they are raising empathetic, understanding, and cooperative citizens. That is
all right,
what like that is
so
the foundation to a working functional country is having your citizens be on the same page about shit. So we should
all right,
not
so let me
allow
ask you a question.
there to be
Let,
fragments of our citizens that have been completely miseducated on how the world works.
it's not
Same thing
fragments; it's the
things like
majority.
racial history. Like that's the
All
same.
right,
I feel the same way about like that.
One
all right.
second,
So
one
let me
second,
ask you a
second,
question. Let me
one second,
ask you a question. So
second,
you
one
got
second,
Muslim people,
one
and
second. You
Muslim
guys
people believe.
close on. You guys close on this, and then I want to bring up another topic of
Okay.
y'all. Yes.
All right, so you got Muslim people. You have Muslim people who believe that the Quran was given to Muhammad by the angel Gabriel. Okay, so that's what they believed happened. Now that may or may not be true, but that is what they believe. So does the school have the right to train their kids not to believe that if that is their religion?
The school has every right to teach the kids verifiable and accurate history. And if
Okay.
verifiable and accurate history and science indicates that we actually developed from evolution and fish and da 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 da, then they're going to get taught that. But
Okay.
we're
So
most definitely not going to allow people from any background or religion to tell the government that they cannot teach verifiable scientific and
okay.
historical
So
facts. That
all
should
right. So
never
check this
be
out.
okay.
All right, so check this out. So here's the point. I'm glad you said that. Okay. So let's say that they change their mind, right? And they say, you know what? Yes, there are people with XX chromosomes or XY chromosomes, but primarily these people are men and women. There's only two sexes. There's only two sexes, right? And this is the science we've been using for all this time. You know, we've changed our mind, this, that, and the other. Let's say the dominant message changed and in schools, they begin to teach what it is that the vast majority of Americans believe. Would you support that because it's the dominant message and it's the accepted message that scientists agree on? Would
It's
you
ne-
accept that?
I never once said anything about dominant messages. I said
All right.
accurate and verifiable science
If
and
it was an
history. I
accurate and
don't give
verifiable message,
I don't
if
care
they
what
change,
the dominant message is,
all right,
because
don't
that
get lost
has
in
been
that.
the dominant message for the
Don't,
past
don't,
50 years, but that
don't
was
get
not
lost in that.
historically or scientifically accurate. I don't care
All
what
right.
the dominant message is. I'm for historical and scientific accuracy,
All right. So
not
if
what
they
the
if
most
the
people believe.
all right, if scientists as a group were to agree now that the historical and scientific message is that there's only two genders, okay, that there's only two sexes, and that transgenderism is really gender dysmorphia, okay, and it's not it's not it's a what is it a psychological condition. It's not something it's not that you're born in a body of this idea. It's the psychological. If scientists begin to say that, would you then agree with that and be comfortable with that?
If that was the scientific consensus and if we had verifiable data to back that up and prove it, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, then you're being logically consistent, and I won't argue that point any
Yeah,
further.
that's what I'm saying. I
Okay.
think you keep speaking as like there's this like coalition of trans people going around forcing people to change to our
No, I don't
ideas,
think it's a coalition of
commandeering
trans people.
science, all that stuff. When that's just not true. Like the trans community has been fighting for their rights and for equality for a long time. It also
Okay.
just happens to be that the scientific and medical community have on their own discovered things that back us up. Those are two completely independent things that just happen to happen that we actually
Uh,
were wrong about a lot of things. We were wrong about the fact that
right.
there's just two sexes. We were wrong about the fact that people don't have gender identities. We were wrong about historically that different genders were celebrated in different cultures. Like we were just wrong
Right.
about things, and
All
now
right.
we
Hey, y'all,
understand that we
y'all
have.
got 1 minute and we're shifting gears. Wrap it up in
All
one
right,
minute.
Yeah,
and no problem. No problem. Jane, I personally, right, I've got buddies who work in academia. You know, I got my best friend, the godfather of my second son, has a PhD in philosophy. Him and I were roommates in college, and you know, I get to interact with folks within academia. And what I know about gender studies and women's studies is that it has incredibly little to do with science. The majority of it is philosophical conversations about gender psychology that most behavioral scientists who are people who actually deal with limbic and endocrinatic and hormonal systems disagree with completely. So
that
I
is
understand it. So I understand what it is that you're saying, but because I've been exposed to a different body of knowledge, I don't accept it. Now, if you could expose me or if I became exposed to a body of knowledge that said otherwise that I found acceptable, then I don't have a vested interest against the truth, right? I don't believe what I believe because it's how I want to see the world and I just don't know any better. I believe what I believe because the best data that I can find supports what it is that I think. And what it is that I found is that there is an agenda, not by trans people per se, right? I don't think it's trans people. I don't think trans people are incredibly powerful people in the government that are like pulling the strings of the world, right? And that's why I wanted to make sure I dissociated you from the what the movement does that I don't like, because I know you as an individual human being have nothing to do with that, and I don't want to hold you accountable, responsible, or anything like that for that. Okay, but here's what I am saying to you: there is an incredibly powerful apparatus around feminism and LGBTQIA and all of these things. Now, the intersectionality movement, the spectrum movement, all of these things have become one big ball. And this big ball speaks to women. And the reason it speaks to women so much is because women spend a fuck ton of money.
Who's
They spend
behind
a
all of
dollar and 22 cents to every
Who's
dollar that they
behind all
make.
this? Who's
And so because of that, there's a very powerful financial apparatus that I think is driving all of this. But
behind
I
all
think
this?
that it's
'Cause this is
what you
starting
say?
to get into some like cultural Marxism type stuff.
Okay, we gonna wrap it up. We're done. We're gonna wrap it up there.
Yeah, hey,